In 1907, a 50-year-old semi-literate peasant named Gregory Rasputin, who hailed from an isolated Siberian village in an area where the Siberian cedar grows, found himself in St. Petersburg, the capital, and soon became a regular guest of the imperial family. Not only did he amaze them with his predictions, but he possessed incredible sexual stamina. At the time of his assassination, onlookers were struck by the fact that despite his bullet-ridden body, he continued to live. Perhaps because he had been raised on cedar nuts in a part of the country where cedars abound. This is how a contemporary journalist described his staying power. At age 50, he could begin an orgy at noon and go on carousing until 4 o'clock in the morning. From his fornication and drunkenness, he would go directly to the church for morning prayers and stand praying until 8 before heading home for a cup of tea. Then, as if nothing had happened, he would carry on receiving visitors until 2 in the afternoon. Next, he would collect a group of ladies and accompany them to the baths. From the baths, he would be off to a restaurant in the country where he would begin repeating the previous night's activities. No normal person could ever keep up a regime like that. The many-time world champion and Olympic champion wrestler Alexander Karelin, who has never been defeated so far, is also a Siberian, also from an area where the Siberian cedar grows. This strongman also eats cedar nuts. A coincidence? I mention only these facts, which can be easily verified in popular science literature, or which can be confirmed by witnesses. Lydia Petronova, who was given the ringing cedar pendant by the Siberian oldster, is now one of those witnesses. She is 36 years old, married with 2 children. Her co-workers have noticed changes in her behaviour. She has become kinder and smiles more often. Her husband, whom I happen to know, told me that their family has now been experiencing a greater degree of mutual understanding. He also remarked that his wife was somehow become younger looking and is starting to arouse greater feelings in him, more respect and, quite possibly, more love. But all these multitudinous facts and evidences pale in comparison to the main point, which you can look up for yourself, a discovery which has left me with not a trace of doubt, and that is the Bible. In the book of Leviticus in the Old Testament, chapter 14, verse 4, God teaches us how to treat people and even decontaminate their houses with the help of the cedar. After comparing all the facts and data I had gleaned from various sources, I was confronted by such a remarkable picture that all the miracles known to the world faded before it. The great mysteries that have excited people's minds began to pale into insignificance in comparison with the mystery of the ringing cedar. Now I could no longer have any doubt about his existence. They were all dispelled by the popular science literature and the old Vedic scriptures I was reading. Cedars are mentioned 42 times in the Bible, all in the Old Testament. When Moses presented humanity with the 10 Commandments on stone tablets, he probably knew more than has been recorded in the Old Testament. We are accustomed to the fact that in nature there are various plants capable of treating human ills. The healing properties of the cedar have been attested in popular science literature by such serious and authoritative researchers as Academician, Pallas, and this is consistent with the Old Testament scriptures. And now pay careful attention. When the Old Testament talks about the cedar, it is just the cedar alone. Nothing is said about other trees. And doesn't the Old Testament say that the cedar is the most potent medicine of any existing in nature? What is this anyway? A medicine kit? And how is it to be used? And why, out of all the Siberian cedars, did these strange fellows point to a single ringing cedar? But that's not all. Something immeasurably more mysterious lies behind the story from the Old Testament. King Solomon built a temple out of cedar wood. In return for the cedar from Lebanon, he gave another king, Hiram, 20 cities of his kingdom. Incredible! Giving away 20 cities just for some kind of building materials. True, he got something else in return. At King Solomon's request, he was given servants that were skilled in felling timber. What kind of people were these? What knowledge did they possess? I have heard that even now, in the far-flung reaches of the taiga, there are old people whose job it is to choose trees for construction. But back then, over 2,000 years ago, everybody might have known this. Nevertheless, specialists of some sort were required. The temple was built, services began to be held there, and the priest could not stand the minister because of the cloud. What kind of cloud was that? How and from where did it enter the temple? What could it have been? Energy? A spirit? What kind of phenomenon? And what connection did it have with the cedar? The old fellows talked about the ringing cedar as storing up some kind of energy. Which cedars are stronger, the ones in Lebanon or Siberia? Academician Pallas said that the healing properties of the cedars increased in proportion to their proximity to the forest tundra. In that case, then, the Siberian cedar would be the stronger. It says in the Bible, "By their fruits ye shall know them." In other words, again, the Siberian cedar. Could it be that no one has paid any attention to all this? Has no one put two and two together? The Old Testament, the science of the past century, and the current one are all of the same opinion regarding the cedar.